without further ado, as you've heard throughout the day, when it comes to global, it's essentially mobile. I know when we first started Guelph, it was actually because, well, it was interesting because we thought there was this big shift to global strategies. And then along came the Great Recession, slowed things down, and we came out of that into the world of the iPhone and mobile commerce. And for those of you that were in the industry at that time, pretty much everything got shifted to mobile. So as we came back out of that, what happened was people kept saying, I'm seeing all this traffic from all over the world, and it's coming in on mobile devices. So we're super pleased to have the Corra team here today. Tom, I'm going to let you and Duke introduce yourselves, but Tom is another first-time speaker at Guelph, so I just want to welcome him and thank him, and we're looking forward to keeping you guys involved. And Duke, I'll let you take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you. So hi, everybody. My name is Duke Marr. I'm SVP of Strategy and Experience at Corra. Corra is a headless first commerce agency. So we build on top of numerous e-commerce platforms, including Magento, Shopify, and Commerce Tools. Delighted to be here today. Tom, tell us a little about yourself and Elemis.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Thomas Bennici, Senior Global Digital Program Manager at Elemis. Effectively, what that means is that I am the key contact for driving our global digital experience strategy.
Awesome. So we're here to talk about how Elemis, leveraged a progressive web app, specifically, as well as a headless architecture to deliver a future-proof, long-term global e-commerce strategy. And a great learning for us is really in this journey has been just how complicated Elemis's model is with their various distributors and elements. So we'll be speaking about that, particularly in terms of the expansion components. But let's start with some basics. So first of all, for anyone who hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid already, just the difference between traditional versus headless commerce. So in a traditional e-commerce architecture, you have what's called a monolithic, structure where your front end is completely married to your back end, and the two are never to be separated. They must always follow the same, technology and innovation roadmap, and you really have to work with the given strictures and limitations within those platforms. In a headless architecture or structure, the difference is your back end is segregated. You connect it via APIs with whatever separate heads you may have, right? So one head might be what your website, or in this case, a progressive web app, could be other websites, could be kiosks, could eventually be automotive. Any place where you want to be in touch with your customers, where you want a customer touch point, can be a headless component on this architecture. So the advantage is really time to market. It's faster to launch one of those new heads. Were any of these the sorts of considerations, Tom, that you guys had as you were going down this road?
Yeah, I would say, in fact, a couple of the things that you mentioned were definitely drivers for this decision. Just a bit of backstory when it comes to just Elemis as a brand. This is a 30-year-old heritage brand out of the UK, very well known, in fact, known as the #1 premium British skincare brand. So when I think of where we've come from, and where we derive kind of the innovation behind Elemis as a business, the thought process behind what we would do with digital strategy was very much based in that innovation as well. So coming in, I've been with the business now for a year and a half, and it was just around a year and a half ago at the top of the pandemic when we decided to pull the trigger on, moving forward with a partnership with Corra and launching our new site experience. And we immediately, the obvious nature of the pandemic kind of created a critical need for us to ramp up this build. And we realized pretty quickly that because of the choice we'd made, that we would be able to accelerate speed to market.
And I presume part of that was also given that a lot of your salons are in cruise ships.
Yes. So thinking about the kind of traditional business model that Elemis had operated off of, e-commerce was a huge channel for us. But outside of e-commerce, when we were on Magento 1, an unsupported version, a couple of speakers already referenced that, over the last, decade, 2 decades, we've seen a vast increase in e-commerce attribution when it comes to revenue. And we'd started seeing that before the pandemic. then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden we lost our mainstream of revenue, which was our cruises, our salons, our retail presence. So if we didn't have the need before
Right.
to kind of kick things off and to reimagine our digital experience, we certainly have the need then.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah.
So it's a mobile first, progressive web app. For anyone who doesn't know what a progressive web app or a PWA is, we like to say it's basically, a mobile website that's taken all the right vitamins. So it functions and behaves a bit more like a native app, meaning it's number one, it's fast. It can work offline. You can, call the camera. You can use geolocation services. But again, the number one factor is really speed. And as Kent was saying, mobile is still the last undiscovered country. When we look across our portfolio of clients at Corra, we see on average a 39% revenue gap between mobile and desktop. So progressive web apps married to headless architectures is why we have really focused on that, so that we can help our customers close that gap. And so far, I think the results with a PWA for Elemis have been pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I just looking at the visuals that we have here, I mean, it's pretty obvious that from a just aesthetic perspective and a visual and styling perspective, it's a really beautiful site experience. And I think that at face value, that's huge in and of itself. When you factor in the, snappy, quick, high-performing nature of our PWA experience, particularly on mobile. I don't want to give away any KPI. We'll take a look in a second, but it just, the results really speak for themselves. It's interesting to know also that we chose to move forward with our not only re-platform going from Magento 1 to Magento 2 PWA, but also a complete rebrand and redesign. So, and this was when I started in May of 2020, just as the pandemic happened and as we were racing towards the holidays. So to see these results, especially support holiday during such a critical time, game changer.
Absolutely. So, as you can see on the screen, 85% increase in mobile conversion rate, 150% increase in mobile transactions, and a 47% increase in holiday sales. If anybody is looking to build a business case for a PWA or a headless, you can just plug those numbers into your spreadsheet, and I think you'll be well on your way.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. So, Tom, talk to us a little bit about how Elemis is structured as a company and how that relates to your technical architecture.
Sure. So I think when it comes to our just overall digital experience, and not even global, just considering, where the brand had started in the UK, and the biggest market we were trying to break into, or we have over the last few years, was US. So when I came on, we looked at not only redefining the flagship experience on Magento that supports our US, UK, and EU sites. Simultaneously, we're also looking to accelerate some new website launches throughout the globe. So kind of related in the sense that our goal with Corra not only was to present this amazing new, marriage of content and commerce that was, particularly sophisticated, particularly quick, and again, the metrics speak for themselves. But more importantly, I think we needed to have a really reliable framework. And so when we think about the kind of headless experience that we have been able to secure through this partnership with Corra and developing our PWA the way that we have, it gives us the flexibility to not only sustain shopping of today, and whether that's today, pre-holiday, or during holiday and after, it also gives us the flexibility to really expand on our global mission. And so for Elemis, not only in my 1.5 years here, first 4 months, in fact, we launched the PWA. I simultaneously have also been a part of launching upwards of, I think, 21 new websites throughout the globe in local markets, and with the intention of using our PWA framework to eventually kind of wrangle those sites back in and reabsorb them into our PWA space, because actually they live outside of that currently.
And those 21 other sites are managed by your distributor partners?
Yeah, so it's the vast majority of them are managed through a distributor partner, the Hut Group. It's a very, I think, familiar, massive conglomerate that does support a lot of DTC beauty and fashion businesses. We've had a long-standing partnership with them, so it just made sense, I think, even before the pandemic hit, to partner with such a, you know, monolithic entity that was really able to kind of support us in that accelerated expansion with not only their site experience on their, they have a proprietary platform, but also to be able to support us with their supply chain.
Supply chain and
Yeah,
and
and
local
all of their
knowledge?
operations, quite frankly.
Right. So just to kind of underscore,
Yeah.
the eventual plan is to move more of the flagship experience that you have in the US, UK, and EU to those distributor
Yeah,
sites.
I think the end goal, and I don't necessarily have a timeline for it, but I think within the next couple of years, we can probably expect to see, you know, once we've had these sites live independently in their markets and kind of understand how they are performing, kind of have that serve as a litmus test for our just demand in those
Sure.
areas. We have an amazing international trading team that we internally that we partner up with, who, you know, vets markets and vets independent distributors and affiliate distributors through our parent company L'Occitane. And they've identified, you know, regions throughout the world. I mean, right now we're live in Europe, the Middle East, APAC, Oceania, Africa's upcoming. So I think the plan is definitely to continue to roll out a couple of these sites, have them perform in their local markets on whatever platforms they're on, garner that demand, kind of maybe even perfect it, and then eventually reabsorb that back into our framework.
Gotcha.
Because the end goal really is that consistency of global digital experience.
What kind of different metrics do you see in terms of shopping behavior on the flagship experience versus your distributor run local market sites?
Yeah, I think it's very clear that the newness of those markets, it's not really a fair, I think, comparison. You know, just given the cachet we've had in the UK, you know, that's our number one performer, obviously. US is not far behind. We're definitely making some strides in that market, but they're nowhere near the performance for our international sites. So I think it's equal parts. How do we accelerate that expansion? You know, offer Elemis to customers throughout the globe, but also educate them. And so I think that when I kind of look at the performance for these sites, they're bringing in dollars. And I think during this time, that's the most important thing when you consider that we have lost, or for the better part of the last year, our salon experience, our retail experience. So that has not only been kind of a saving grace, but also education for the markets. And I think that if we continue to refine that experience and educate customers on who Elemis is, what the product is, it'll kind of all fall into place. By the time we are ready to kind of pull it back into the PWA, it will have established really, you know, significant markets.
Right. Makes total sense. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the creative things you guys did during the pandemic to really recreate that in-store experience online. I think a lot of our audience may be curious about some of these particular technologies you guys have utilized.
Yeah, so the experience at Elemis has been really exciting for me personally, because not only was I able to you know, own the end-to-end delivery of these site launches, but then further roll out all of these really exciting omni-channel experiences that you know, are on trend with a lot of what we're seeing in the market currently, especially in e-commerce for DTC brands, live streams, virtual consultations, appointment bookings. And so much like I mentioned earlier about the critical need of our e-commerce business, a lot of these choices you would think were predicated on, hey, we don't have access, we can't physically touch our customers anymore. We can't give them spa treatments. So how do we give them that high touch experience they're used to, whether it's at the House of Elemis or one of our, you know, amazing retailer partnerships throughout the globe? How do we give them that experience? And so we did that. We rolled out, you know, throughout the year different experiences from live stream shopping. So what you're seeing with the mobile shopping is kind of like an Instagram shopping experience, but it's hosted through a partner called Bambuser. They're out of Sweden, I believe. And this was a really effective lesson for us in terms of understanding what influencer marketing when it comes to these like live shopping experiences means to us. Sure. You know, the brand DNA is heavily rooted in QVC. So this is kind of like our play at the new QVC.
The new QVC.
So when you think about that new digital experience and accessing that new client base, this is kind of our contemporary QVC.
And did it work?
I would say definitely we saw some performance, we saw some learnings. I think that it's very, very clear that when it comes to driving marketing initiatives like this, there's a lot of spend that has to go into bringing customers from off-channel. So I think that was definitely a lesson for us. And right now we're kind of just like marinating on what that meant and strategizing as to how we can maybe expand on this further. I don't think it's gone away in any capacity. Instead, there's definitely an interest in that.
So I'm hearing kind of it's still in the test and learn phase.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think that, you know, just the fact that the website, while it is so high performing and doing great for us, it's for all intents and purposes in its infancy.
Right.
So I think that a lot of what we do is, you know, especially with Corra, you guys are great partners in helping us with analysis when it comes to, you know, considering a new feature set for our roadmap. Understanding, you know, is this the best investment for us? And so that's been really helpful. And I think that the test and learn culture that we've kind of helped, the synergy that we've created between teams has been really helpful. And so that's a great example of that. I think even further to our kind of in-store experience online, we rolled out some, so you can either do a on-demand virtual consultation, or you can book an appointment for an advance consultation. And we have an amazing team of consultants. You know, again, the brand itself, when you don't even consider digital, is education first, especially when it comes to our amazing products and our formulas. So our customer care team and our virtual consultants are so well versed in our product that, and I've been on these consultations.
Go ahead.
I've been on these consultations where it feels like you're in the room with that person, like you would be in the spa.
And are those consultations still happening?
Yes, so they're happening regularly. So at any given point, you can go onto the site and either see like a little widget. It's powered by a company called Hero. Originally, I think the product was created to maximize productivity on the shop floor in stores during like off-peak times. We kind of reimagined how we could use Hero for the purpose of consultations. You know, we don't have access to that shop floor. We don't have access to the salon floor.
So in peak pandemic, I assume those consultants were doing those consultations from home.
Yeah. So we had like set them up. They have like a suite behind them, uniforms, the full product range, and they're able to give you that high touch experience as though you might be sitting, like I said, in our House of Elemis in Mayfair or somewhere else. So it very much feels like you're getting that in-store experience.
Right. And your consultants who work in this fashion, have they been satisfied with that experience, or did they feel kind of divorced from it all?
I think it was at the beginning a little kind of had to sell people on it, especially with this industry where, you know, the real selling point is that face-to-face experience with the person. I think differently than fashion. I come from a background in fashion, and when you're choosing your skincare products, especially if it comes at a premium price point, you really want to understand the benefits of that, and you really want to be able to see the textures. Sure. So I think that when we kind of broke that down for our consultants and helped them understand that, you know, you can do what you were doing in store or in spa online, they really bought in. And I think that's part of what made it so successful. Their excitement behind it and their willingness to kind of try out this new experience has been really great.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So let's talk about what's coming up and what's you know, on the immediate plans for Elemis and digital.
Yeah, so I think that we definitely have not stopped launching sites. So we have a roadmap of a couple of upcoming launches over the next couple of years. It'll take us further into all of the markets that we're already in and break into a couple of new markets like our first in Africa. So that's definitely high on the agenda. I think over the probably 2-3 year period at least, we'll start looking at what it means to bring back sites into the PWA. So I think that for digital is really where we're going to continue expanding. And then as we learn, we continue optimizing. I think rolling out new features, like obviously some exciting things coming down the pipeline for holiday, optimizing checkout, super mobile driven. So, we have a lot of great checkout options currently that we've implemented with Corra. We are looking now to take those to the next level. Really bank on express checkout in mobile for Apple Pay, Klarna, stuff like that. So I think that's our roadmap. And then what you see here in these visuals, super exciting. I think that this is something that we've been doing behind the scenes. We have a really great, small but mighty brand team and visual merchandising team that has been partnering, much like our distributor sites, with distributor partners to open up these beautiful shop-in-shops throughout the globe. So I don't exactly remember where these are, but I know that we have like a presence in Jakarta, and we have like these like very, very well-appointed shops that I almost think is kind of an extension of our PWA experience.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think, what's coming down the pipeline for retail.
Any plans to add in actual digital experiences in any of those shop and shops or retail locations?
I think
Kiosks or anything like that?
it's the end goal.
Right.
So as far as we've gotten so far, you can't really tell in the photos, but there are, all of our beautiful imagery that we've created for .com and for campaigns is showcased in-store experience very prominently. So I think that's kind of like the early indication of leveraging our digital content for store experience. I can certainly see us getting to a point where digital experience is not siloed. Digital experience becomes an extension of in-store. And I think of thinking about omni-channel as brick and mortar versus digital, I think is a little old school.
Very.
I prefer to think of it now as digital omni-channel,
Yeah.
where, the storefront online is not a separate storefront. It's one and the same as your in-store experience. So why not offer the same thing?
Sure.
I think that's the direction that we're definitely going to go in.
That makes a ton of sense. So we have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Does anybody have questions for us? Yes, please.
What kind of indicators do you look at when, like, why you should bring back a distributor back under your umbrella? Is it just revenue? Is it, what do you look for?
That's a good question. I definitely don't know that I'm the person to speak to that just because I'm not making that decision. I'm more facilitating the actual technical process of bringing that back in. But kind of like I mentioned earlier, I definitely think that, the kind of efficacy of the market is going to be a big factor, and whether that metric is revenue or, audience and like CRM capture, I would imagine that those are definitely high on the list. But it's really, I think, about creating a presence and creating that demand and then determining if we think that it should live as it is on an ongoing basis independently, or if it needs to kind of be brought back into the ecosystem. So I think we're still kind of in the learning phase for sure.
I think we had one.
Yo.
Sure.
Is it on? Okay, cool. Hey, I thought you guys were great, by the way. Just wanted to say that.
Thanks.
What recommendations do you have for a brand starting to explore new markets?
I definitely think that it's really important to have the framework down and to understand, at that point you're exploring e-commerce, so you hopefully understand who your client is. You hopefully understand who your customer is. And if it's a time like this during the pandemic where maybe you have a relationship with them in store that you don't have online, I think just kind of stick to basics and don't assume that your customer online is going to be completely different than your customer in store. Kind of account for that. And I think, just being authentic with your brand experience that you might have already in a real life capacity and bringing that to life on digital.
Thank you for your thorough answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more?
What were some of the factors that went into deciding if a PWA was right for Elemis?
Sure. So I definitely think the selling point, between going with the PWA experience on Magento and then partnering with Corra, with you guys being kind of specialists in that, that was really the selling point. Understanding that we were creating like the framework for tomorrow that we could build upon really quickly, that we could, roll out new features for. We've rolled out some things in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we do.
And then we've taken, time to roll out something as big as like our ERP replacement, using, a much more sophisticated technology that we just couldn't plug into our last experience. Like it actually couldn't sustain it. So I think that just the integrity and the core kind of strength of the PWA framework, and then being able to be nimble and build upon it.
Right.
Two major factors for going with that.
Time to market.
Yeah, time to market.
Time to market.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's a mic.
Sorry, I have a question. It sounds like you're in a lot of markets. How do you prioritize going into new markets, and how rapidly do you roll out? It sounds like you have a pretty good core concept, but then how do you pace them out?
Yeah, so I think year one was really the biggest push for expansion. That's when we launched the majority of the sites that you see live today. So if you were to navigate to elemis.com, checked out the drop-down, you'd be able to see our full range of markets. Those were all launched roughly within 11, 12 months on a rolling basis. And like I had builds going on with, some of our, again, amazing distributors. I think that was a real key consideration. We probably would not have been able to roll those out as quickly and as efficiently if we didn't have that partnership. So that was a huge, I think, selling point. I think also having their understanding of those markets, specifically when I refer to the Hut Group, they're huge internationally. And I think that they had a ton of learnings from their other beauty brands that maybe helped inform the strategy. But a lot of it was in play even before I started. We have great, global digital leadership that has brought to Elemis the hunger for that expansion, and just the being well informed enough to understand which markets to go into and when.
I actually do have a question as well. So one thing that I love that you guys brought up was a topic that we're actually diving into quite a bit tomorrow, which is this idea of how does a brand work with their existing retail partners. In many cases, and this is something that started with a research study I think we did with the NRF back in 2018. Again, the point was we saw a lot of marketplaces. We had a lot of brands coming to us saying, our international revenues are booming. You peeled it back a little bit, and a lot of it was what they were doing through different Amazon sites around the world. So the question that we went out and talked to people was, how are you working with your traditional retailers if, from what we believe is happening, these big marketplaces are slowly taking the place of your international distributors? The big challenge was, okay, yeah, we're digital. They're not really digital. How do we get them digital? Is kind of the whole headless plus PWA the answer to that? Because a lot of people haven't been able to really say, okay, it's really expensive to kind of open my platform and open my digital world to all my retailers, especially the ones that are, especially if you got mom and pops and the cruise ships. I can only imagine some of the stuff that you guys have. So long-winded, Scott Silverman type question. Do you see the PWA plus headless as the solution to working and to bringing to digitizing those relationships?
I think so. I think just kind of jumping in from a brand perspective, as we just got our cruise businesses back. It's really starting to ramp up again. Cruise, I believe, was the last to come back into play. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on the e-commerce experience, and now that we have these retail presences and cruise presences coming back, it's now about where did we leave off with them?
Right.
And what is their level of sophistication when it comes to technology, and are there opportunities to integrate, at the POS level? Can we look at expanding our loyalty program, which is online, out to these retailers?
Right.
So I think these are definitely questions that we're asking ourselves at Elemis, and to say that the PWA framework would be able to support that, I think, is an understatement.
And the thing we found, Duke, was it really wasn't the cross-border platforms. It wasn't even the commerce platforms. It was the SI community that was pretty much the one that's bringing the brands and their resellers kind of into the next phase of
We're trying, pushing as hard as we can.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up by thanking these guys. Thank you guys so much.
you
That
so
was
much.
awesome.
Thank you.